We will move to item 16, discussion and direction regarding changing from at-large to a division-based system of elections, presented by Dave Vaughn, City Manager.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, tonight, with the assistance of our city attorney, Shannon Chafin, I'm going to walk the council through step one of moving in consideration for changing from an at-large to a division-based system for elections. Purpose: to determine whether to declare the city council's intent to change from an at-large elections for members of the city council to division-based elections and to establish a timeline for doing so. The members of the council are currently elected at large. Under an at-large system of elections, every voter in the city votes for each member of the council regardless of where the voter or the candidate is registered to vote in the city. Under a district-based system of elections, the city is divided into districts. Candidates may only run for the seat representing the district in which they are represented to vote, and voters may only vote for a candidate from their division. Currently, all California County Board of Supervisors are already elected by districts. The transition to district elections for cities is now becoming increasingly common in California. Regionally, the cities of Chico, Davis, Citrus Heights, Elk Grove, and Roseville have all recently transitioned to district elections. One of the reasons for this transition is that the district elections are consistent with the California Voters' Right Act, which encourages districts for communities with a significant population of minority groups. Additionally, if certain jurisdictions do not transition themselves, they could be compelled to do so by a judge through a process that could potentially restrict community input and set aside election results. Lots of background. The initial 2020 data census was finally released on August 12, 2021, or at least some of that data, census data. The day before, the city received a letter from attorney Matthew Rexroad on behalf of prospective person allegedly residing in the city, claiming that the city's at-large system of elections violates the California Voters Act. The letter demands that the city switch to a division-based system of elections and threatens to sue the city if they do not voluntarily switch to a district-based system of elections. The letter specifically alleges that the districts at large systems dilutes the ability for Latinos and those Indian ancestry to elect candidates of their choice or otherwise influence the outcome of the city elections. While the city has a tradition of diversity of representation, including the nation's first Sikh woman as mayor, as well as a Latino of Mexican-American origin currently sitting on the council, public agencies who did not move to district-based elections are exposed to a greater legal risk. Despite inaccuracies in the letter, it serves to trigger certain timelines under the California Voters Act, even though all of the updated 2020 census information has not been released from the U.S. Census Bureau. The first step towards switching to division-based elections is to adopt a resolution, one, declaring the city's intention to transition from an at-large to division-based elections, two, describing the specific steps the city will take to facilitate this transition, and three, establishing an estimated time frame for doing so. The resolution before the council tonight is only a preliminary step, not a final authorization to transition to division-based elections. The full process of the transition is described in the staff report. Shannon, did I miss anything?
Got it
Good
all.
to go. Alternatives. Continue this matter to the next council meeting scheduled for September 21st. This is still within the initial 45-day safe harbor period, which ends on September 25th, 2021. Decline to adopt a resolution of intent to move to district-based elections. Staff recommendation is to adopt a resolution of the City Council of the City of Yuba City declaring its intention to transition from at-large to division-based elections.
All right, thank you, Mr. Vaughn. I do have a couple comments. First, thanks to staff. I know this issue has been sort of orbiting around out there for quite some time, and appreciate the work that they have put into the research, et cetera. I suppose this question is probably more towards the city attorney is, there, in addition to the California Voters' Right Act, there are some financial, potential financial consequences if we don't do something. Is that correct?
Yes, the city of Palmdale ended up paying something like $4.5 million because they were contesting these sorts of actions. It is very easy in the state of California to show that there's some sort of disparate impact among minority or ethnic groups or any sort of group. And technically, now in the state of California, everybody's a minority, right? So it's very, very easy to pick one of them. And the standard is hey, if you can show any way that this minority is not being represented in its equivalent impact, you can be subject to a lawsuit under the California Voters' Rights Act, and courts basically rule in favor. It's very hard for a city to win. I think the loss rate right now for cities is something like 95% or more. And not only do they have to pay their own attorney's fees and costs, they often have to pay the other side's fully loaded costs. And I can tell you the attorneys set, in my mind, arbitrarily high rates. So you're lucky if you get by with a settlement for only, $500,000, $1 million, $2 million on something like this if you don't change to districting in a timely manner.
And I know your firm does a lot of business with other local governmental entities up and down the state. This isn't just limited to cities. Perhaps you could help with the public understanding of that as well.
Yes, it's counties. All the counties have switched over. It's cities. It's community service districts. It's basically anything that's a defined public agency. And there are attorneys who go up and down the states doing the research, trying to find cities and counties and CSDs and everything else just that haven't switched over to districting yet, and they send them a letter.
Okay. That concludes my questions. Anybody else for Mr. Vaughn or Mr. Chaffin? You forgot. I believe it. Okay, anybody from the pub? Oh, I do have a public comment card. I remembered this time. Heather.
This is why I'm here this evening. Actually, this is a huge issue. Where is everybody? I don't understand. The person that spoke earlier is a friend of mine, and she was basically saying that the same feeling that I have, that we do need to go to division-based elections. When you do that, you have a representative that's representing you, and you know who that spokesperson is, so you would go to that person. At this point, if I had any qualms about the city or what's going on, I don't know who I would approach, because I don't have a representative that actually represents what I'm, for my area, right? So right now for the county, Carm Baines is our representative, and so therefore I know who I could go to if I really needed to feel that I had to go to the county supervisors for something. But the main question that I had is, because I've seen this when you're doing the lighting districts or things like that, and people have to recuse themselves because, I don't know exactly where you live, but several of you live relatively close to each other. So I'd like to know how this impacts the current city council. I think that, and I don't know Mr. Kirshner very well. He's relatively new, but the current constellation we have, I think you guys are doing a great job, and it would be not very beneficial to us if we had to come up with something, with a system where we basically pit two of you against each other because you're going to be in the same district. Does that make sense? Maybe if you could just let us all know, you don't have to tell us where you live, and we don't know where the districts are going to be, but some of you are living close enough to each other that you could pretty much assume that you're going to be competitive or in some competition then for the seat that you currently have. So if maybe you could just let us know so that we can kind of get an idea of how this would impact the current constellation. Yeah, that's my main question.
Yes, some of us do live in relative closeness to each other. I would say that until we start seeing maps and understanding where the districts and the demography lies, it would be premature for us to answer whether or not we are. I don't know. So I think it's something that's definitely, to your point, number one, there's going to be quite a few more meetings and quite a few more opportunities for the public to not only speak on the matter, but also visit whatever maps get generated.
And through the mayor, if I could add to that.
Please.
The other thing, too, is in addition to not having any maps, because we don't have any public input at this point, is that anybody who's been elected to date will be allowed to serve out their full term, no matter if we go to districting. So there are at least 2 council members that are on their first part of their 4-year term here, they will be able to go through their full year term. It'll be a transition process.
Okay. Anybody else from the public like to comment? Anybody online?
No public comment.
Okay. Bring the matter back to the council,
Through the mayor,
please.
I'd like to make a motion adopting a resolution of the City Council of the City of Yuba City declaring its intention to transition from at-large to division-based elections.
All right, I have a motion by Councilperson Kirchner, second by Councilperson Harris. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, item 16 passes unanimously.